Hello, my name is Matthew, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to install the software known as Gempak, which is a software package that helps you visualize gridded data, usually used in meteorology purposes, but can be used in other earth science fields. I'm going to show you how to install Gempak on the Linux distro known as Ubuntu. I chose that Linux distro mainly due to the fact that it is the most popular. Most people who get into Linux, even if they just dab into Linux, uses Ubuntu due to its user-friendly interface and just the fact that there's now big companies like Steam that support it, and that's actually kind of the primary reason why I'm using Ubuntu at the moment. And I think you'll see that Ubuntu does have differences in the way it installs Gempak than maybe some other distro like CentOS, which I've actually installed Gempak on that software before, and it is a little bit different, and you'll see those differences later on when we get into the actual tutorial. So this is going to be a simple process, hopefully only taking 10 steps. And if you get lost at any point or you can't see what I'm showing you on the screen, you will be able to look down at the description and follow along there. So let's go ahead and get started. The first step you'll want to do is actually make sure your software, your Ubuntu software, is up to date. And as you'll see here, my software is actually up to date. So that's the first step. Second step is we're going to download the software. Now, Gempak is free to install. You will have to sign in and make an account with the software providers, but after you get past that step, you can actually download and it's free to install. The only caveat is that do not use it for commercial purposes, although if you really want to make commercial weather maps, there's much better software out there than Gempak. Okay, so now that we're got an account and we're logged in, we're going to go to the Gempak download page. And once you get to the download page, you'll see that there's several different things that we'll be able to download. Anywhere from the binary files to tables, libraries, and maps. In this case, we're actually going to want to install the Gempak tarball, which is underneath the source code package. In my case, I'm using Gempak 6.10-2, and you'll just install whatever version is up to date. For the most part, hopefully things don't change from the next iteration to the point where this tutorial becomes inadequate, but if it does, they have been keeping a guide updated, and we'll go to that guide in just a little bit with links in the description pointing you to that guide. Alright, now that we got the package downloaded, we're going to go ahead with the rest of the steps to get Gempak installed on our computer. So I'm actually going to use the GUI interface for a little bit, just because I want to move the file that we just downloaded into the desktop. Now, it doesn't matter where you actually install this. I just like the desktop, personal preference. Maybe you want to put it in your documents folder, or maybe you want to follow the instructions and make a user account for Gempak. Now here's the problem with that. Later on in our tutorial, I'm going to show you, we're going to edit some files and point to where we actually end up putting this file. And like I said, I'm putting it in the desktop. You can choose wherever, but I think the desktop is just a nice friendly place to put it. So now that we're in the desktop, I have the file on the desktop, excuse me. We're going to go ahead and untar it, or it's kind of like unzipping if you're unfamiliar with the tar program. And here's where it will probably be useful to have that installing Gempak guide, which I pointed to you earlier. So let's go ahead and untar that file. So here I go. Alright, I'm going to go back to the GUI real quick. And you'll see that now we have a folder called Gempak 6.10. I'm actually going to put that in a folder named Gempak. Now this is going to become self-explanatory later, so let's just put that 10.6 or Gempak 6.10 into this folder named Gempak. Alright, Now, I'm going to get out of the GUI, go back to our terminal, and now we're going to just cd into that Gempak folder, ls, just showing us the list of files in that directory. And now we're going to create that symbolic link, which is kind of step 2 in that installation guide that we're following. So here I go. And remember, we have Gempak 6.10. Alright, so in that folder that I call Gempak, I have that untarred directory that we just untarred and moved into the Gempak folder. And now I have the symbolic link, which will become important later on as we go ahead and install Gempak. Now we're going to go over to the section that it's going to pretty much not follow this whole installation guide that we were using earlier, because now we got to install the library software, and there's a couple of different library packages which we have to install, which are going to be different from what is listed on the website because we are using Ubuntu. Now in the description below I have a list of all the files that you're going to have to install, and just take a moment and go ahead, take a look at it, and I'll show you how to install one of the software packages, and then from there you'll know how to install the rest. So let's go ahead and install our first package. So make sure that you're using the super user or the sudo command, apt-get, which is just the installing package for Ubuntu, install. And as you can see, if you look back at the installation guide, the Gempak installation guide, GCC is actually the first package. So obviously type in your password. Alright, now it's very possible that GCC has actually already been installed. This is a clean installation of Ubuntu that I'm starting from, but you know, there's already probably some packages that Ubuntu has to use in order to actually run. So it looks like the GCC library package has already been installed, which is fine. It's good to check anyway to make sure, you know, that if we're missing any of these libraries, obviously Gempak is not going to run. So here, if you look at the description, is where we actually differ. So the package that's known as GCC-C++ in the installation guide is actually known as Build Essential in Ubuntu. So let's go ahead and install that. Now I'm going to leave it here for you guys to install the rest of your packages. So yeah, at this point just go through the list. You can either install it all at once or whatever. So I'll meet you back in a little bit once I'm done installing the rest of the packages. Okay, all the packages have been installed now. Hopefully that went well for you. Now we're getting close to installing, but before we do that, we have to edit a couple of files to make sure that we point to the right files when actually compiling and installing Gempak. So the first thing we're going to do is, if you go back to our installation guide, you'll see that at some point midway through the guide it talks about the gem environment profiles, and you'll see that there's a couple of things that they want you to edit. So let's go ahead and take care of that first. So I'm going to go back to the file GUI interface, go onto the desktop, the Gempak folder, and I'm just going to go into Gempak 6.10. Obviously, if you're using a different version, go into that. And you'll see two files, Gemenviron and then Gemenviron.profile. So we're going to edit both of those. So I'm going to open up the first one that doesn't say .profile. And I'm going to scroll down a little bit to the point where it says top level directory. And then here is the important part we have to edit, because this is where the configuration file takes a look and says, okay, here's where all the files are located. And you'll notice that that is not the correct directory. So I'm going to go ahead. So home, that's correct. If you're following along as I am, desktop, then obviously your username, which in my case is Weatherman, and then the rest of it should be good. I'm going to go ahead and hit save. Do the other thing, and the one that's .profile. Once again, it says home, Gempak, and obviously that's not the right thing, so we're going to go ahead and edit that. Once again, desktop, username, which in my case is Weatherman, and the rest should be good. But here's another important installation process that we have to do, and we have to edit our configuration files that are used in the terminal, which is known in Ubuntu as .bashrc or .profile. We're actually going to change both just because I think both actually get used in this process. I'm sure there's some Linux people out there who are probably going to say otherwise, but I did notice that if I didn't change both of them, I was getting installation errors. So let's just go ahead and edit it. We're going to have to go back to the terminal real quick. So let's go back and to our user. So out of the Gempak folder, out of desktop, back into just the normal user directory. And I'm going to use the program Nano. You can use your favorite text editor. And I also don't believe we need super user privileges on this one either, so I'm just going to use without it. .bashrc. Alright, once I get into that folder, I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom, and now I'm going to go back to that installation guide. And here, if you go up to the top, you'll see sourcing environmental variables, and that's what we're doing right now. And obviously, since we're using Ubuntu, we're going to use Bash. If you're using CentOS, well, I hope you would actually be following the instructions on this guide and not what I'm doing right now, because that's totally separate. But obviously, since we're using Bash, we're going to copy this line right here and put it at the end of our file over here. Now, obviously, as we did with the other files that we were editing earlier, we're going to have to make sure that we're pointing to the right directory. So desktop, blah, 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 save. Now we're going to do the same thing to .profile. Go to the end of the file. Make sure we're pointing to the right direction. Alright, now we're going to do something that's known as sourcing. So, source.bashrc, as you can see there, source.profile. This just kind of tells Ubuntu and our terminal that we're actually now recorrecting those configuration files for the terminal and some of the background processes for Ubuntu. And yeah, so at this point we're actually gonna go ahead and restart the computer. We've just gotten to a point where we've installed a lot of software. We just made some changes to our configuration files that run terminal and some of the background processes for Ubuntu. I think at this point it just makes sense to restart the computer. So I'll meet you back once the computer is restarted. Okay, I just restarted my computer. Now we're actually going to go ahead and install Gempak. So I'm going to go into our Gempak folder, which in this case is in the desktop. Oops. Alright, now that I'm in the Gempak folder, you'll notice we have that symbolic link that we created earlier, and also our Gempak 6.10 folder. But in order to install the program, we're actually going to have to cd into that symbolic link. And so let's just go ahead and do that. So cd into NAWIPS. And now you'll see that we're in that directory, which is the same as Gempak 6.10. And you'll see that same content in that folder. So since we're building from a source code, we have to invoke the program make. And we're actually going to do this twice. Now, if you're an advanced user of Linux, maybe you can go ahead and do it with, just go ahead and use the command make everything. But I would strongly suggest against that. what we're going to go ahead is make the program once, and in that process check to see if there are any errors. If there are any errors in that program, then we can go ahead and see maybe we forgot to download a library, maybe there's something else fishy going on, but maybe we can just, nip some problems in the butt before we actually go ahead and make and install everything. So let's go ahead back to our user guide. And we're going to go down to where it says, all the way kind of towards the bottom, where it says compiling Gempak source. And obviously we're using the program make. And we're just going to go ahead and copy that first line, make all, and then kind of the greater than or less than sign, I forget which is what. But you get what I'm trying to say. Copy that, and make sure you're in the directory, that symbolic link, which we just did a couple of minutes ago. Go ahead, paste, and enter. Now, you'll notice that nothing's happening, which that's good. I'm going to go ahead, terminal, open tab. I brought up a new tab. It's in the same location, although in this case it actually went into the Gempak 6.10. It got out of the symbolic link, but that's fine. We're going to go ahead, copy that second line, that tail-f make.out. Copy that, paste, and now we can follow along. Now, you'll just want to kind of follow along to make sure that things aren't breaking really early on. This should take about 15 to 20 minutes to get through everything. Just an idea of what to expect. If it's a little bit earlier than that, well then maybe we can assume that either A, you have a very nice computer, or B, something actually went wrong. So I'll meet you back in 15 minutes when this is all done and over with, to go over maybe to see if you have any errors. Alright, we've made it to the end of the compiling process. We're now going to go ahead and check for any errors. So in order to do that, let's go back into our GUI interface. We're going to go ahead and go into the Gempak folder. Let's just go ahead and go into Gempak 6.10 or whatever version you're using. And we're going to go to the file called make.out, which should open a text editor, most likely gedit. Now we're going to find and look for any error 1. So error and literally the number 1. And now there should be 2 error number 1s. The first one should be, alright, come on. Alright, so as I said, there should be one around line 20,220, which should just say ignored. And there should be one other one, kind of in the similar area, both of which should be ignored. Now if you have an error 1 that does not say ignored next to it, then you have an issue with the compiling process, and you're going to have to go back through these steps, make sure you have all the libraries installed, make sure you restarted your computer, make sure you source the .bash rc and the .profile files correctly, go back into the video and make sure you did that correctly. And then if you're still having an issue, well, I think then Dr. Google will be your best friend. Go ahead and copy and paste those errors and make sure, maybe you just put Gempak at the end of your search field just to make sure you're, going down the right direction. But for the most point, this should actually work. This should, at this point, you should only get 2 error 1s and you're ready to go ahead. So let's go back to our terminal. And we've already compiled it once, but at this point, it's not actually installed technically. So we're back here at the terminal and type in make this clean. And that's just going to clean up the compiling source that we just did. And this will make sense a little bit. So go ahead, let that happen. Alright, now this is it. We're going to make, compile, and install everything. So there's the command make everything, and once you do that, it will actually go ahead and compile it and install Gempak. Assuming you had no errors, you should be good to go. Now, one thing I will point out, that this will take maybe a little bit longer than the 15 minutes that took the other process we just did. It may take up to 20 to 25. and it's also going to do a couple of processes that you see listed in the guide. It does all of it. So we'll just go ahead and enter this command. Make sure you're in the symbolic link that you're currently in that directory. So I'm actually going to make sure that I'm in that directory. Present working directory. Yep, I'm in that symbolic link. Now I can just hit type in and go ahead. I'll see you back when we're done installing. Alright, moment of truth. Hopefully everything worked. Unlike last time, we won't be able to check because we didn't make the make.out file, but there's one way that we can definitely check, and that is to open up a Gempak program. So I'm just going to simply clear. Alright, and let's open up gdplot. Oh, look at that. Now gdplot does start off with a basic, file that you references, and we can actually run that to see if it works. So let me go ahead, run. Oh, and look at that. Gempak work got installed. Now, if for whatever reason your Gempak does not work, go ahead, go through the steps again. The most important step when reinstalling this program is to do a make disk clean, which cleans the build that we were working on. So we went over that after we compiled the first source code, and then we make disk clean, and then we made everything to get to this point. So just remember, if you're having an issue, make disk clean, figure out the issue, install whatever you need to install, or change whatever you need to change, and then go ahead and repeat the processes that we went through earlier. Well, I hope this has been a video worth viewing. If you like it, subscribe. Check out some of my other weather and band related videos. If you like those, give a big thumbs up and subscribe. Thank you. Bye.